This is a tutorial to assist you in taking your raw data, organizing it, and then beginning to write it in your results chapter. This tutorial is for demographics and quantitative data. So this sample data set that I have here is from a former student who conducted research on the factors related to ACL injuries. And so just for your reference, I've included her purpose statements and central research questions on her data Excel spreadsheet. So we will refer to this section together. So you can see the purpose was to investigate the factors related to ACL injuries in female athletes. And then from what research provided and also her study results offered, she included a section in Chapter 5 that provided comprehensive discussion on methods to prevent injuries in high school and college athletes, specifically ACL tears. She had 3 central research questions, and they are listed here. What is the correlation of coursework and licensure for implementing a strength and conditioning program? How often are coaches integrating strength training throughout the year? And then are coaches implementing appropriate preventive methods to reduce the number of ACL occurrences? And she located those factors that would prevent injuries from actual research. So you can see that N for her was 15. And this first section here, highlighted in yellow, are her demographics. And then what I've done to make this more meaningful and easier for you to understand is I highlighted the data as it relates to the specific central research question that it addressed. So you can see the first central research question here is in purple, and here is the author's data that she gathered from that. The second research question is here in green, and you can see the 3 questions that were posed here to address this research question. And then finally, the last section was her third central research question, and I'd say that's probably in a pink or a mauve. And this was quite extensive. She had subgroups in this and actually had 9 Likert scale questions. So this is what your data will look like when it's organized in either an Excel spreadsheet or just a basic table format that you develop in Word document. Some of you might have something similar already prepared for you if you were using Google Docs, or even a SurveyMonkey will give you the results like this. But this is an excellent way for you to begin to gather, organize, and then make sense of your data. So I recommend this format. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this author's results chapter. And what we're going to do is just walk through each section, and you can see how you can take your data, disseminate the results, and then write it up in the results section. Okay, so I'm going to toggle now to her results, and this information is provided to you as an attachment under this tutorial. So feel free to download this and refer to it later on as needed. So if I toggle back now to her paper, this is her Chapter 4 paper. And again, I recommend that you follow the template carefully, because you'll see that this first part is very scripted. You'll be able to just follow the template. So you'll provide your purpose statement, your central research questions. Okay, and then we go right into the preliminary analysis. Preliminary analysis is your demographics. So you can see how this author wrote up her demographics. I would say she did a pretty good job of it. If anything, my feedback would be that it seems a little choppy and doesn't flow real well, but she does use appropriate list format. And if you notice that when she cites her results, she always gives the frequency first, so how many of the participants, and then she determines the overall percentage. So that's just basic mathematical calculation that you can provide. So again, if you went back to her data set, it would be all of the information that she gathered in yellow that was included in her preliminary analysis. And now we go into the main analysis. And the main analysis is where you make meaning of your data for each of your central research questions. So you can see how she starts off. She says the first analysis was the licensure of coaches. And then she explains to us that there were 3 questions posed to investigate correlation of coursework and licensure in the implementation of a strength and conditioning program. And then she gives the specific results. And again, you can see from her data set that she had 3 questions for this, and she posed the results very scripted. The final sentence is very important because it gives a brief summary of what the section was about. So it would start here where she begins. The results indicated that the majority of coaches have prior knowledge in strength and conditioning, hold special certifications, and are licensure in coaching soccer. So that basically is a summary of the results as it relates to addressing the first central research question. You always then refer to Table 1. And then you can see the proper formatting of the table. Provide a little bit more spacing here to make it easy to read. And it's identified as Table 1. And then you give a brief heading for the table, and that is in italics. And then you can see the basic formatting. So this is a title of each of the 3 questions that were posed to address this research question. It was a yes and no. She gives the frequency and percentage of each, and then she does a total, and the total should be the total amount of participants, which was for her 15. So that means that she just addressed the first research question. Please note that there is no opinion in here, no first person. It's very scripted. So you begin with your first section on what you're analyzing, what research question you are addressing, and then you look at how you address it and what the data showed, and then the final question or the final sentence is a brief summary of the results and then referring to the appropriate table. So now we'll go to her second analysis. Now if we toggle back to her data set, the second analysis is how often are coaches integrating strength training throughout the year, and she provided 3 questions for that. And when we look at her data set, it's really hard to understand what questions she was gathering, but she knew what was going on. She probably was using a code sheet for each of those questions, and so she would go back and be able to see what the responses related to. So the second analysis was, and I would have changed this, was the investigation of strength training throughout the year. And she included 3 5-point Likert scale questions. And she explains to us what they investigated, which was the frequency. So that was good. She gives what the responses meant. And then she gives us the results. And so again, she's just breaking down each of the 3 questions, disseminating the findings, and then writing them in a very scripted format, as you can see here. So she does that for each of her 3 questions, and then again a final summary is the results indicated, and she gives an overall summary, and then she refers again to the second table. So you can see how the table is a little bit different in that instead of yes or no, it gives the Likert scale. Notice she compressed very frequently and rarely and never together, and that is appropriate, but she should have explained that in the paragraph that she was going to do that. So if you find that your responses are very balanced across the board, it's okay for you to summarize them and include like strongly agree and agree, or strongly disagree and disagree, or in her case very frequently and frequently, or rarely and never. Okay? And now her third analysis. This was quite a detailed analysis because she had subgroups. She did a fine job of this because basically her overarching research question is she's just looking at the different preventive methods that coaches are using to reduce the number of ACL occurrences. She came up with those preventive methods from research, and that research was already discussed in her Chapter 2 Lit Review. But you can see she's got 9 questions here that she used to address this third research question. So if we take a look at this, you can see how nicely she broke this down and made it very readable. So here's the third analysis, and it's addressing the reputable preventive methods to reduce. And then she gives the categories. There are 5 categories consisting of 9 questions to address this area. And she proceeds to explain what the categories, how they were designed with a 5-point Likert scale, and then she proceeds to discuss them. So here's the first subcategory was dynamic warm-up prior to practicing games. And then she gives the results, and she refers us to the table. The second subcategory was rest and recovery, and lets us know there were 2 questions posed for this, and now she gives us the results. And again, she refers us to the same table, which is very appropriate because all of these findings relate to one research question. And then here comes the third subcategory, proprioception and mechanics. She again provides us the results and again refers us to the table. Here's the fourth subcategory, again addressing the same research question. She gives us the results, she refers us to the table, and then finally she gives us a final subcategory and gives us the results and refers us to the table. Now, one thing I would have done in assisting this student is she needed one more sentence or possibly 2 to give an overall summary of all of those subgroups, and I feel like she left us hanging a bit. But if you do look at her table, it's quite clear. She gives each of those 5 subheadings right here, and then she provides the summary here and gives us our totals there. I believe she did her average or mean score for the proprioception and mechanics because there were so many questions involved in that section, so she wanted to average it out. But again, I would have recommended 1 more or 2 more lines giving an overall summary of these findings. And that's chapter 4, done. So oftentimes students are nervous about this chapter, but when really you understand the big picture, it can be quite enjoyable, I promise, because it's your data and now you get to get into it and see what did the results say and how does it relate to your findings. Please, it is very appropriate if your results do not answer your research questions in the way that you thought. In fact, it makes your research exciting. So make sure you put on your non-biased hat. Do not look for results. Let the results come to you. And then following this method that I provided in this tutorial, you will be very successful in organizing your data, disseminating the findings, and then writing the results. So I hope this tutorial was helpful to you. Thank you for watching.